Welcome to Midnight Sleep Crime Story. I'm going to help you relax tonight. I know many of you want to use this video to fall asleep. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to this channel. Let me know where you're watching from, and what is the time there. Also do well by telling me the kind of story you would like to listen to. Title: The woman everyone feared to love. The moon hung silently above the peaceful town of Hareland, casting silver light across the quiet streets where every house seemed asleep. Every house except one. Inside a beautiful white cottage at the edge of town sat a woman staring through her bedroom window. Her name was Amelia Hart. At 45 years old, Amelia was known throughout Hareland for two things. The first was her beauty, the second was her temper. Now, if you asked the people of Hareland which of those two things they remembered most, not a single person would hesitate. The temper, they would say immediately. And that was exactly the problem. Amelia sighed as she looked at the moon. 45, she whispered. The number felt heavy. Almost 10 years. 10 years of hoping. 10 years of dating. 10 years of introductions from friends. 10 years of awkward dinners. 10 years of men who smiled during the first meeting and disappeared before the second. It wasn't that she wasn't attractive. Far from it. Even now, at 45, Amelia possessed a graceful beauty that turned heads whenever she walked through town. Her chestnut hair flowed past her shoulders. Her bright eyes sparkled like morning sunlight. Her smile, when she actually smiled, could light up an entire room. Yet she remained unmarried, alone, and tonight, just like so many nights before, she wondered why. Of course, deep down, she already knew the answer. Everyone knew. Her anger. It was legendary. Children whispered stories about it. Shopkeepers exchanged tales about it. Even visitors passing through Hareland eventually heard the warnings. She's beautiful, people would say. But don't make her angry. Unfortunately, making Amelia angry was surprisingly easy. One time a waiter brought her tea instead of coffee. She raised her voice so loudly that 3 tables stopped eating. Another time a man she was dating arrived 15 minutes late. Amelia spent the entire dinner lecturing him about punctuality. There was never a second date. The poor man looked relieved when it ended. Yet Amelia wasn't cruel. Not really. That was the confusing part. Underneath the anger lived a kind heart, a generous heart, a lonely heart. But most people never stayed long enough to see it. They only saw the storm. And storms are frightening, especially when they arrive without warning. As midnight approached, Amelia finally climbed into bed. She closed her eyes, but sleep refused to come. Instead, memories arrived. Faces, names, possibilities, all the men who might have become her husband. All the relationships she had unknowingly destroyed, one by one, like leaves carried away by the wind. Eventually she drifted into sleep, and that was when everything began to change. The next morning started like every other morning, until Amelia met a stranger. She was buying vegetables at the town market when someone accidentally bumped into her. A basket tipped over. Tomatoes rolled everywhere. Normally this would have triggered one of Amelia's famous explosions. Several nearby shoppers immediately stepped back. They knew what was coming, or at least they thought they did. Amelia inhaled sharply. The stranger looked up. He was tall, well-dressed, and oddly calm. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have been paying attention." Then he smiled. Not nervously, not fearfully, just kindly. The strange thing was that Amelia suddenly forgot her speech, the one she usually delivered when someone annoyed her. Instead she found herself staring. The man knelt down and began collecting the tomatoes, one by one, as casually as if nothing unusual had happened. No panic, no fear, no desperate attempts to escape. Very strange, very suspicious. Who was this man? Finally Amelia cleared her throat. "You don't know who I am, do you?" The man chuckled. I know exactly who you are. That answer surprised her. Oh, Amelia Hart. His smile widened. The most beautiful woman in Hairland. For a moment Amelia felt warmth spread through her chest. Then he added, and the most terrifying. Several nearby shoppers nearly choked trying not to laugh. Amelia's eyes widened. The stranger had just said the one thing nobody dared say to her face, and somehow he survived. In fact, he looked completely relaxed. Terrifying? Amelia repeated. The man nodded thoughtfully. That's what people say. And what do you say? I say people are usually more complicated than rumors. Silence followed. The market suddenly felt very quiet. Amelia didn't know why, but those words landed somewhere deep inside her heart. People are usually more complicated than rumors. No one had ever said something like that to her before. No one. The stranger stood and handed her the last tomato. My name is Jovan Carter. Amelia accepted it slowly. Their fingers briefly touched. A strange feeling passed between them. Not lightning. Not magic. Something softer. Something calmer. Something that felt suspiciously like hope. Over the next few weeks, Jovan appeared everywhere. At the bookstore, at the bakery, at the park. Sometimes Amelia wondered if he was following her. When she accused him of exactly that, Jovan laughed. Hairland isn't that big. She couldn't argue with that. Still, there was something different about him. Most people walked on eggshells around Amelia. Jovan did not. Most people feared her reactions. Jovan seemed immune to them. One afternoon they were having lunch together when Amelia became frustrated with a server. The food was taking too long. Her irritation rose rapidly, like a kettle about to whistle. Jovan noticed. You're doing it again. Amelia frowned. Doing what? Preparing for battle. She blinked. What? The server is probably overwhelmed. He forgot our order. Or maybe he's human. Amelia opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again, then closed it once more. For the first time in years, someone had interrupted one of her angry spirals before it exploded. And somehow, it worked. The anger faded. Not completely, but enough. Jovan smiled. There she is. Who? The real Amelia. Amelia looked away. Nobody had ever searched for the real Amelia before. Most people only noticed the anger. Jovan noticed everything else. Weeks became months. Months became seasons. For the first time in nearly a decade, Amelia felt genuinely happy. But happiness can be frightening when you're not used to it. Especially when you're afraid of losing it. And Amelia was terrified. Because she knew her temper had ruined every relationship before. What if it ruined this one too? The answer arrived sooner than expected. One rainy evening, a misunderstanding sparked a fierce argument. Voices rose. Emotions flared. Old habits returned. Amelia's anger exploded like thunder across the room. Words flew. Painful words. Words she instantly regretted. When the argument ended, silence remained. Jovan stood near the door. Amelia's heart pounded. This was the moment. The familiar ending. The part where the man leaves. The part where she ends up alone. Again. Tears filled her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. Jovan looked at her carefully. Then he walked back. Not away. Back. He sat beside her, and took her hand. Amelia stared at him, confused. You're not leaving? Jovan smiled gently. No. Why? Because everyone has flaws. Tears rolled down her cheeks. You deserve someone better. Jovan shook his head. I deserve someone real. The room became very quiet. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. Inside, Amelia felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Acceptance. Not because she was perfect. Not because she was beautiful. Not because she had finally learned how to hide her flaws. but because someone chose her anyway. The real her, the imperfect her, the human her. And for the first time in a very long time, Amelia understood something important. Love isn't finding someone without flaws. Love is finding someone who stays long enough to understand them. A year later, the bells of Hareland rang through the morning sky. The town gathered to witness something many believed would never happen. Amelia Hart was getting married, and standing beside her was the gentleman who had seen beyond every rumor, Jovan Carter. As Amelia walked down the aisle, she noticed tears in the eyes of friends and neighbors. Not tears of sadness, tears of joy, because everyone loves a miracle. And sometimes miracles don't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes they arrive quietly, with patience, with kindness, with understanding, and with a gentleman willing to hold the hand of a woman everyone else was afraid to love. The bells continued ringing. The crowd cheered. The sun shined brightly above Hareland, and Amelia smiled, not because she had finally found someone to marry, but because she had finally found someone who understood her heart, and that made all the difference. The wedding bells faded into memory, but the story of Amelia and Jovan was only beginning. Many people believed marriage was the finish line, a happy ending, a perfect conclusion. Life, however, had different ideas, because after the flowers wilted and the guests returned home, Amelia discovered something unexpected. Marriage did not magically remove her temper. The anger was still there, waiting, sleeping, hidden like a dragon inside a cave. Most days it remained quiet, other days it stretched its wings, and on those days, Jovan had to remind himself why he had fallen in love with her in the first place. One cool autumn morning, Amelia woke up in a wonderful mood. Birds sang outside. The sun painted golden patterns across the bedroom walls. The smell of fresh coffee drifted through the house. Everything felt perfect, until she walked into the kitchen. Jovan was standing beside the stove, smiling, proud, dangerously proud. Amelia immediately became suspicious. Whenever a husband looked that proud before breakfast, something had gone terribly wrong. "What did you do?" she asked. Jovan blinked. "What do you mean?" "That smile." "What smile?" "The smile you're smiling." Jovan laughed. "I made breakfast." Amelia looked toward the table. The pancakes were burned. Not slightly burned. Not a little crispy. Burned. They looked like they had survived a small house fire. Amelia stared. Jovan stared. The pancakes stared. Nobody spoke. Finally Jovan cleared his throat. "I call them rustic." Amelia burst into laughter. Real laughter. Very badly. But before she could respond, Jovan reached for her hand beneath the table. Just a gentle squeeze. Nothing more. The simple gesture surprised her. Then Jovan smiled at the guest. "You know," he said softly, "people always ask how I handle Amelia." The room listened. But nobody ever asks how Amelia handles me. A few people laughed. Jovan continued. "I'm stubborn." More laughter. "I leave cabinet doors open." The laughter grew louder. "I forget where I put my keys." Now everyone was smiling. "And apparently I can't cook pancakes." The room erupted. Even Amelia laughed. The tension disappeared instantly. Just like that. Without anger. Without embarrassment. Without anyone getting hurt. As they drove home later that night, Amelia remained unusually quiet. Jovan glanced at her. "What are you thinking about?" She stared out the window. "You always do that." "Do what?" "You protect me." Jovan smiled. "Not exactly." "What do you mean?" "I'm not protecting you." Amelia looked confused. "Then what are you doing?" "I'm reminding people who you really are." For several moments she said nothing. Then she turned toward the window again, because suddenly her eyes were full of tears. Happy tears. The kind she was still learning how to accept. Winter arrived. snow-covered hairland like a soft white blanket. The town looked magical. Children built snowmen. Families gathered around fireplaces. Storefront windows glowed with holiday lights. One evening Amelia and Jovan walked through the town square holding hands. Everything felt peaceful, until they noticed an elderly man sitting alone on a bench. The man appeared cold, lonely, forgotten. Without hesitation, Jovan approached him. Amelia watched quietly. For nearly 30 minutes Jovan sat with the stranger, talking, listening, laughing. Eventually the elderly man's face brightened. His shoulders relaxed. He smiled. As they continued walking home, Amelia finally asked a question. "Why did you stop?" Jovan looked surprised. He looked lonely. So I talked to him." Amelia shook her head. "You always do things like that." "What things?" "You notice people." Jovan smiled. "Everyone wants to be noticed." Those words stayed with her. 4 days, weeks, months. Everyone wants to be noticed. Maybe that explained why she had been angry for so many years. Maybe beneath the frustration was something else, something deeper. Maybe she had spent most of her life wanting someone to truly see her. Not her beauty, not her reputation, not her mistakes, just her. And somehow Jovan had done exactly that. One spring afternoon, nearly 2 years after their wedding, a young woman knocked on their door. She looked nervous, very nervous. Amelia opened the door. "Can I help you?" The young woman swallowed hard. "I hope so." Amelia waited. The woman shifted awkwardly. Then she spoke. "I'm kind of becoming you." Amelia blinked. "What?" The young woman sighed. "I get angry all the time." Tears filled her eyes. "My relationships keep failing." More tears appeared. "People are starting to avoid me." Amelia suddenly felt as though she was staring at a younger version of herself. The resemblance wasn't physical. It was emotional, painfully emotional. She invited the woman inside. Hours passed. They talked, shared stories, laughed, cried. By evening the young woman looked lighter, hopeful. As she prepared to leave, she asked Amelia a question. "How did you change?" Amelia thought carefully, then smiled. "I didn't change overnight." The young woman listened. "I just found someone who showed me patience." She glanced toward Jovan. "And eventually I learned how to show some to myself." The young woman nodded slowly. As the front door closed, Amelia stood silently for a moment. Then she looked at her husband. Jovan raised an eyebrow. "What?" Amelia smiled. "I think you're contagious." "Contagious?" "Your kindness." Jovan laughed. "That's not how kindness works." "It is now." Years continued unfolding like pages in a beautiful book. There were challenges, misunderstandings, arguments, unexpected difficulties. Life was still life. But something remarkable had happened. The woman who once frightened everyone in Hairland was slowly becoming someone different. Not because she stopped being strong. Not because she lost her voice. Not because she became perfect. She simply learned that strength and gentleness could exist together. And every night before sleep, when the house became quiet and the world slowed down, Amelia would sometimes look at Jovan and remember the lonely woman she used to be. The woman staring out a bedroom window. The woman who believed she would never find lasting love. The woman who thought her flaws made her impossible to love. Then she would smile, because life had surprised her, in the most beautiful way possible. And somewhere beyond the quiet streets of Hairland, beneath a sky filled with stars, tomorrow was already preparing its next surprise. If you like this video, kindly like, comment and subscribe to this channel. Good night.